Well, that last was kind of ragged. I'm sorry. Maybe I tried to do a little bit too much at once. But if you come back tomorrow, I can show you a chart that I think will make it a little bit easier. Call it a sort of a mini field trip tomorrow. All right, in the chronological survey, this is still in Exodus, the stories about Moses. Yesterday I dealt with Moses as an outlaw and talked about the archetypes. Well, he comes back. Now he's a leader. And he wants his people to go home, leave Egypt and go back. And I'll talk about, as they get started tomorrow, I'll deal with that story some. But anyway, he comes back, and why would the Pharaoh want to let him go? Well, you know, they're productive workers. They can use them. That would be a loss of wealth. So Moses, or we're to understand that God does this. He sends plague after plague after plague to convince the Pharaoh that they need to go. And I purposely didn't rack my brain to come up with all 10 of them. I think I maybe had covered 8 or 9 of them. But frogs, for example, everywhere, frogs everywhere, all over the place, everywhere you looked, in the cupboards and everywhere, frogs. And the Pharaoh, every time the Pharaoh would say, make it stop, make it stop. I'll let you go if you stop. And so then the plague goes away, and then the Pharaoh, his heart is hardened, they say. He changes his mind and say, no, you can't go. So another plague comes, gnats, animal disease. All the animals were dying everywhere. Water turns to blood. There was a plague of darkness. Fire came raining down from the sky. Flies. And when I come to the flies, I'm going to pause for just a quick second here. Handel, George Frederick Handel, the guy who wrote the Hallelujah Chorus and the Messiah, he also wrote an oratorio called Israel in Egypt, where an oratorio is like an opera, except that it's on a biblical text. And my choir did this once, Israel in Egypt, because it's supposed to be one of the hardest pieces of choral music there is. So we want to say, could we do it? And yeah, we did it, but we had trouble getting the accompaniment. But anyway, when I see flies, I remember this violinist that we had that had to play. In Baroque music, they like to try to make the music sound like what the text is. And how do you get the sound of flies? Well, this poor violinist, in the key of 3 flats or something like that, she was zipping up and down scales all over the place. Bzzz, sound like flies. I always think of that when I go through, and frogs. Ba-doop, ba-doop, ba-doop. The music goes like that. Well, anyway, Israel and Egypt, George Frederick Handel. It's not all that popular or commonly done. I'm not even sure if I recommend it, but I do think of it. All right, anyway, again and again, Moses would say, let my people go, but the Pharaoh didn't. Well, the last of the plagues is the Passover, and I treated it separately. The Passover. It is enormously important to understand Christianity, which comes along more than 1,000 years later. The Passover, with it, the firstborn were going to be killed in every household. I think it was the firstborn animals too. Sons probably, daughters hardly counted among the ancient Hebrews. It could be avoided if a blood of a lamb was put over the door and a certain ceremony done. Of course, the Egyptians didn't pay any attention to this, and the angel of death is what passed over. It passed over, and it killed all these firstborn. And the Pharaoh's own son was one of the firstborn that was killed. And so then the Pharaoh did let the people go. He said, okay, you may go. They even gave them silver and gold and sent them on their way. That was enough. The Jews, to this day celebrate the Passover at the same time that Christians are celebrating Easter, more or less the same time. And really, to understand Christianity, you really have to have some understanding of the Passover, because Jesus was celebrating the Passover when he went to Jerusalem and was then killed. All right, I hope to see you tomorrow.